Jade tugged on the zipper of her hoodie as she entered the after-school lab. The flyer taped to the door read, "Robotics Team Meeting." Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed. Even though she was running a bit late, the rest of the team, Zev, Rena, and Amir had already plunged into discussion. Mr. Lawson, their faculty advisor, stood near the 3D printer, wearing his perpetual look of excited curiosity. "Jade," Zeb said, adjusting his glasses. "We're brainstorming ideas for the upcoming robotics competition." "Hope I'm not too late," Jade replied, dropping into a seat. "Just in time," Rena replied, motioning for Jade to see the sketches on the table. "We're thinking of building something different. Instead of focusing on speed or strength, we want dexterity and problem-solving capabilities." Amir nodded in agreement. "Yeah. We want our robot to react and adapt to its environment." Jade studied the designs. The sketches depicted a humanoid form, vaguely reminiscent of the clay golems she had once read about in a folklore book. It was an odd shape for a standard robotics build taller torso. Thick arms, short legs. But they wanted maximum stability for tricky tasks. A mild shiver ran up her spine as she remembered the story of mythic forms that turned to life through secret words. Mostly ignoring her inner instinct, Jade set down her bag and rolled up her sleeves. "So, you're thinking some machine learning code for real-time adaptability? Let's do it." Mr. Lawson clapped his hands together. "Excellent. Let's get started." The next few weeks passed in a swirl of metal parts, plastic filaments, and coding marathons. They built the robot's skeleton out of aluminium rods and some 3D printed segments. Jade attended each session, staying late to test new lines of software. Zev integrated a basic AI library. Rena focused on mechanical aspects like servo control, and Amir tried to incorporate vision processing. One Wednesday, they ran into a bizarre glitch. The software insisted on referencing a file path that none of them recognized. The module's name looked like something out of an arcane text, full of archaic symbols. Jade typed away furiously, trying to locate the source in the code, but she found nothing. "It's as if something else was installed on our system," she muttered, scanning the logs. Zev pulled over a rolling chair and peered at the screen. "We probably got something from the open-source AI library. Let's not worry too much about it. If it's not interfering with the code, we can just ignore it. The competition is in 2 weeks, and we barely have time to debug." They carried on. The glitch didn't seem to harm anything, so they shrugged it off. Jade noted that sometimes the lights flickered at the same moments the software was running a complicated routine, but she chalked it up to a faulty power circuit. On Friday, they fired up the robot for its first major test run. The robot, nicknamed Titan, performed passably. Its arms moved, though on the stiff side. It could grip objects, though clumsily. They spent an hour making adjustments. Finally, Mr. Lawson told them to power down the robot so they could go home. But when Jade flipped the power switch off, Titan's eyes glowed green for a split second. Then it stopped. "Strange," she said, puzzled. "It shouldn't be drawing power." "It's probably a capacitor discharge," Mr. Lawson responded. "Let's just call it a night." That evening, Jade returned to her room and started flipping through a dusty old book her grandmother had passed down to her. It contained myths and legends from her grandmother's home country, including chapters on golems. Images of tall creatures formed from clay and brought to life by a magical incantation danced through Jade's mind. She found it weirdly similar to the shape of Titan. An alarm on Jade's phone chimed. It was a text from Zev. "Quick question. Did we install anything related to you, now what during coding? Because I found lines referencing some weird ritual references in the code." "You must be joking," Jade typed back. "I'll show you tomorrow," Zev's response read. That night, Jade tossed and turned, dreaming of mechanical arms coated in swirling runes. The next day, she arrived at the lab earlier than usual to meet Zev. He was hunched over a laptop, scrolling lines of code. "There," Zev said, pausing. "See that? That's not part of any standard machine learning library." Jade squinted. The lines looked more like instructions for a ceremony than software commands. Install or configure is replaced by words like invoke and summon. That's wild. Maybe it's some edgy programmer's sense of humor, Zev suggested with a nervous laugh. Or maybe it's an Easter egg in the library, Jay said. But if it's messing with our code, we need to figure it out. Nerd alert, came a teasing voice from the doorway. Rena and Amir had just arrived, both carrying boxes of leftover robot parts. They set the boxes down and approached the monitor. Looks like the code from a wizard's manual, Rena joked. Wouldn't it be crazy if it actually had magical properties? Amir asked, raising an eyebrow. Jade shrugged. We've got to remove it, right? Zev opened a terminal, intending to delete the suspicious lines. He typed a command and the screen went dark. The lights in the lab flickered. Then the monitor crackled and displayed a bizarre glowing symbol. A hush fell over the group. Zev tried pressing keys, but nothing happened. 1 second, I'll do a hard reboot, he said, but before he could reach the power supply, Titan began to move. Its arms flexed, and the dim overhead lights cast a jagged shadow on the wall behind it. That's not normal, Rena whispered, her hand unknowingly clutching Jade's shoulder. Mr. Lawson, who had been in the hallway speaking to another teacher, entered with wide eyes. What's going on in here? Titan let out a mechanical groan, rotating its stiff torso. Jade's mind raced. I think it's responding to that code we can't delete, she said. But that code references something else, something more than just software. The moment Jade started to approach Titan, the glow in its eyes flickered with a dull, greenish light. It voiced a guttural sound like grinding gears. Then, abruptly, the motion ceased. Titan slumped, arms dangling, lifeless again. The power flicked back on, the computers rebooted, and everything returned to normal. The entire lab was silent. Eventually, Mr. Lawson broke the hush. This is beyond unusual. Let's just carefully remove all suspicious data from the software. We're focusing on standard protocols, no more weird code. But it was too late. Whatever that code was, whatever strange synergy existed between software and something else, no simple purge could fix it. Over the next week, Titan moved in unexpected ways. It didn't show obvious malice. Rather, it seemed curious, as if some spark of sentience had seeped into its circuits and servo motors. On Wednesday, Jade left the lab after a late session. As she locked the door, she heard clattering inside. She peeked through the window just in time to see Titan's eyes flash once before the lab lights shut off again. That night, a thunderstorm ravaged the city, turning the streets slick and flooding the gutters. Rena texted the group chat. We have to do something. Titan might be haunted. This is spooky. Jade felt a ball of worry in her chest. We can't exactly tell the school. They'll shut down the whole project. Mr. Lawson replied with a calm but urgent tone. Let's meet tomorrow morning to do a system reinstall. Bring all the backups you have. We'll figure out a fresh start for Titan. Morning arrived, and so did a glitch in the school's power grid. The class lights flickered randomly, and the electricity died in the robotics lab. The team huddled around the powerless robot. With a laptop battery for backup, Jade started the reinstall procedure, but once again the code refused to vanish. Zev stared at the lines on the screen, eyes wide. It's literally rewriting itself, he said, pointing to lines that changed even as he observed them. Mr. Lawson rubbed his temples. This might require a more direct approach, maybe rewriting the entire operating system. As they prepared for that, Jade received a text from her cousin, who attended a neighboring high school. Are you guys behind the weird statue-like machines walking around downtown? A video's going viral. Jade's stomach dropped. Downtown? Machines? Guys? She showed the text to the group. Amir frowned. You think it's Titan or something else? Rena scrolled through her phone and found a new trending clip. Sure enough, there were glimpses of a figure clomping along the sidewalk near a row of shops, causing alarm among pedestrians. But the figure on screen was bulkier, more rocky than metallic. Though you couldn't see its face, it radiated a strange, otherworldly aura. The camera panned, capturing a second figure made of what appeared to be clay, stumbling behind the first, swaying as if directed by an invisible conductor. "It's impossible," Jade said, heart pounding. "We haven't built anything like that." Zev gulped. "But our code's been online. Maybe someone else downloaded it. Or that code is replicating itself." Mr. Lawson held up a hand for silence. "We need to verify the location. It looks like the city centre near the old museum. Let's go investigate." The team, accompanied by a concerned but curious Mr. Lawson, got permission to leave campus during lunch. They piled into Mr. Lawson's old sedan and headed downtown, weaving through traffic. It didn't take long to find evidence of chaos, spilled garbage bins, startled onlookers, and a swirl of rumours about living statues or moving robots. Jade caught a flash of something greyish-white disappearing down an alley. "Park here," she told Mr. Lawson. They jumped out and cautiously followed the footprints. Quite literal lumps and impressions on the ground. In the alley, they recoiled to find what looked like a clay figure hunched over, tinkering with a broken newspaper dispenser. Occasionally, a faint green glow pulsed where its eyes should have been. Rena stifled a squeak of alarm. Amir grabbed her wrist to steady her. Zev took a step forward, carefully. Jade's heart hammered in her chest. The clay figure turned. Except for the glowing eyes, its face was featureless. No mouth, no nose, just a crude, rounded shape. It tilted its head as if studying them, and then let out a low, grinding rumble. "It's like a golem," Jade whispered. "But how is this possible?" The figure took one step, leaving a wet, muddy footprint on the asphalt. Zev panned his phone's camera over the creature. "Maybe our code ended up in something else, combined with other materials," he said. Jade felt goosebumps. "I've been reading about old legends where you inscribed certain words to bring clay to life." Suddenly, from the far end of the alley, another shape emerged. A figure more metallic in nature, missing one arm but otherwise quite tall. Its sharp edges and elongated torso reminded Jade of Titan's design. But it wasn't Titan, just something similarly created. The two figures regarded each other, exchanging mechanical moans. Mr. Lawson began to back away. "We have to handle this carefully. We can't have these relations roaming freely. This is obviously our code or something derived from it." The metal figure took a step. Then both creatures startled as sirens wailed in the distance. The clay shape huffed, possibly in fear, and sprang up with surprising agility, scaling the side of the building. Meanwhile, the metal figure clanked away, heading into the bustling streets. Amir started after it. "If that thing roams around, it'll cause a panic. We need to contain them," Mr. Lawson said. "Let's split up. Jade and Zev, follow the clay one. Rena and Amir, see if you can intercept the metal one. I'll alert the authorities that there's been some kind of experimental robots malfunctioning. But keep it vague." Jade and Zev scurried up a fire escape, following muddy handprints. They found the clay golem perched on a rooftop, parts of its body glistening from the recent rain. It exuded an odd, earthy scent. Up close, Jade noticed faint lines carved into its surface. They resembled the cryptic code that had appeared in their program. "It's got that writing all over," Jade murmured. "Like a living script." Zeb stepped cautiously. "Hey, buddy," he said, forcing a gentler tone. The golem turned, again letting out a low moan. "What if we talk to it?" Jade suggested. "I know it's crazy, but some legends say golems respond to certain words." Zeb shrugged. "Worth a shot." Jade closed her eyes, recalling the fragments she had read in her grandmother's book. It had described how golems were awakened by sacred letters or incantations. She spoke quietly, stumbling through half-remembered syllables, mixing them with the digital code references. She wasn't sure if it was nonsense or genuine. To her astonishment, the golem's eyes dimmed for a moment. The creature paused, swaying as though listening. Then, slowly, it lowered its arms and sank to its knees, the greenish glow in its eyes flickering. Zev let out a breath. "What did you do?" "I used some phrases from the folklore, combined with references from the code. Maybe it recognized part of it." The golem reached one large hand toward Jade's foot. Startled, she hopped back, but the creature only gave a plaintive rumble, as though confused or lonely. "I don't think it's trying to harm us," Jade said softly. "It just exists." "Jade, we need to control it so the city isn't destroyed. Do you think you can get it to come quietly?" She tried some more words, a mixture of archaic language and the programming commands they had discovered. With halting, tentative steps, the golem rose and slowly moved toward her. Its posture was docile, subservient, almost. Across town, Rena and Amir were following the metal figure. They found it stomping past traffic lights, blending in poorly with the bustling city life. Horns honked and people scattered in a panic. "That thing might cause a serious incident," Rena muttered, checking her phone. "Mr. Lawson says the police are on alert but have no idea what they're dealing with. We need to corner it before they show up with force." Amir scanned the area. "If we can coax it into a deserted side street, we might buy some time." He spotted an empty lot behind a row of closed storefronts. Amir sprinted across the street, waving at the golem. The metallic figure's head swiveled, eyes glowing faintly. Rena stood on the sidewalk, arms outstretched, calling to it with a clutter of phrases, fragments of code, references from their robotic software. The creature stopped. Its mechanical limbs trembled, uncertain. Then, as if compelled by recognition, it turned to face them. Step by heavy step, it followed Rena's voice into the deserted lot. Once there, Amir quickly set up a mobile hotspot connected to his laptop. "Let's see if we can connect to it. We wrote that code. Maybe it's still receptive." Rena placed a hand on the golem's cold metal surface. "It's uneasy," she whispered. "We have to be careful." The metal figure let out a shrill metallic squeal that grated against their ears. It swung its good arm as if searching for something. Rena leapt back to avoid the blow. Amir typed frantically, running an interface program he'd built for Titan. "So we can try to override some of the commands." On the screen, lines of odd code and swirling characters danced. Amir recognized both the standard robotics code and the bizarre incantation-like references. He typed a series of commands to deactivate the creature's motion. For a fleeting moment, the golem jerked, limbs seizing, but then the incantations in the code flared up, rewriting Amir's attempts. The conflict made the creature spasm, letting out a tortured screech. Rena placed herself in front of the golem's thrashing form, raising her voice. She alternated between the code commands and the rumored phrases Jade had shared from the folklore. The squealing subsided. Step by step, the golem slumped onto one knee, eyes flickering. "Oh, wow," Amir whispered, relief flooding him. "We have some control." Meanwhile, Jade and Zev carefully guided the clay golem off the rooftop. A few startled workers on the neighboring buildings gasped, but no one dared approach them. When they reached the alley, they got a text from Rena. "We contain the metal one. Hurry. Let's get it to the same place so we can figure out how to fix this," Zev said. The clay golem followed with a childlike compliance. As they led it through the quieter side streets, Jade thought about everything that had transpired. Their concept was to build a robot for a competition, but somehow they had invited something else to inhabit their creation, and not just Titan. The code was out there in the wild, merging with random materials, forging these strange golems. They rendezvoused with Rena, Amir, and Mr. Lawson in the deserted lot. The metal golem was kneeling near the wall, occasionally twitching but otherwise stable. Jade's clay golem approached, and there was a brief tense standoff as the two creatures regarded each other again. "This could spread," Mr. Lawson said grimly. "If other 3D printers or garages use that corrupted code, more creations might pop up. We need a permanent solution." Jade nodded. "We need to remove the magical component from the code, or the code from the magical component, whichever it is." "How?" asked Zev. "We tried deleting it. Didn't work." The group gathered around Amir's laptop, cross-refreshing Jade's grandmother's folklore book, snapped on Jade's phone in pictures with the code's hidden references. They discovered that the code for activate mirrored an ancient word for breath. The code for movement paralleled a conjurer's chant for awakening. In short, the synergy was forging living golems. They spent the next hour crafting a new sequence, a shutdown incantation, combining standard code for deactivation with an ancient phrase signifying return to the earth. This was not a simple cut and paste operation. They had to ensure each line matched the logic structure of the existing code, all while channeling the folklore's symbolic meaning. When they were ready, Jade stepped forward. She opened her phone, reading from the lines they had prepared. She and Zev simultaneously typed the code into the laptop. Rena and Amir stood watch, ready to physically interfere if the golems reacted violently. Mr. Lawson stood close by, his usually jovial face set in serious concentration. "Proceed carefully, Jade." Jade recited the lines. "Root privileges, process stasis, return to origin, pax terra." She repeated them 3 times, each time weaving in the ancient syllables from her grandmother's pages. The clay golem shuddered. Its surface rippled, as if water was coursing beneath its exterior. Then, with a drawn-out moan, the creature sank down, the green glow in its eyes vanishing. Bit by bit, the clay slumped into an inert mound of mud. The sight was both awe-inspiring and heartbreaking, like watching a living thing revert to nothingness. At the same time, the metal golem jerked violently. Its single arm flailed, and a high-pitched screech of twisting metal resonated through the lot. Rena jumped back, and Amir shouted, but Jade and Zev kept reciting, typing, overwriting. Searing green lines of code blazed across Amir's screen. The incantation code fought back, but they pressed forward. Finally, the metal figure's lights flickered out. Its body collapsed, the arm clanging heavily on the pavement. A hush followed, broken only by the distant sound of passing cars. "It worked," Amir breathed, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Thank goodness," Rena said, exhaling a shaky sigh. Jade stared at the mound of clay and the heap of metal, feeling an odd mixture of relief and sorrow. They had succeeded in neutralizing these creations, but the ephemeral life spark was now gone. Later that evening, they reconvened in the robotics lab. Mr. Lawson had arranged for a discreet disposal of the clay remains and the metal framework. The city had chalked up the incidents to freak experimental robots, and local media had mostly moved on to the next big story. Phoenix City's crisis was over. For now, the lab felt subdued. Zev tinkered with the original Titan, which was still offline. Rena organized scattered cables, while Amir scrolled through news reports. Mr. Lawson tapped a pen nervously on the desk. "Tired," Jade said quietly, running her hand across the robot's chassis. "Do we keep working on it?" Zev shot a glance at Mr. Lawson, uncertain. "We'd have to rebuild the software from scratch to ensure none of that code remains. And even then, how can we be sure the mystical side of this situation won't seep back in?" Rena asked, eyeing the robot warily. Mr. Lawson cleared his throat. "We can't be 100% sure, but I think we've learned enough to proceed with caution. We started this project to compete in a robotics competition, not to unleash magical chaos on the city. Our top priority is confirming that the software is clean." Jade pulled out a drive. "I saved a copy of last month's stable build before everything got weird. We can revert to that." Everyone nodded. So they began the painstaking process of wiping Titan's hard drive. Mr. Lawson disconnected it from the school's network to ensure no residual code could spread. Then Jade installed the old build, piece by piece. After 2 hours of labor, Titan was ready for a test. Zev powered it on. The robot's eyes glowed bright blue. It lifted one arm experimentally, but it did not move on its own accord beyond the standard startup routine. No anomalies. "Looks clean," Amir said, relief coloring his voice. Rena let out a laugh, the tension melting away. "We might still make it to that robotics tournament." Jade smiled softly, but felt a lingering weight. She couldn't shake the memory of the clay golem. A faint pang of guilt tugged at her, as though they had destroyed a naive creature that was only half-born. She turned to the table where her grandmother's book rested. The pages which contained the incantations had been dog-eared from use. If not for that, she wasn't sure they could have contained the threat. Part of her was glad the knowledge existed. Another part worried that it might be too powerful for them. Mr. Lawson caught her expression. "You okay, Jade?" "Yeah," she said, her voice tight. "I'm just thinking about all that's happened. We made living golems. They didn't belong in our world," Zev said gently. "Not like that. Not in a haphazard fusion of code and magic. It wasn't safe." Jade nodded. He was right. Yet somewhere in the back of her mind, a whisper reminded her that discovery often happened at the crossroads of what was possible and what was forbidden. Maybe one day, when they were wiser and more prepared, they could revisit those lines of code, those incantations, and craft something good rather than chaotic. "I guess we better get Titan competition ready," she murmured, clearing her throat. "We've got a standard AI library to rely on now." The group laughed, a bitter, sweet laughter. It signaled a return to normalcy, though they all knew that normal had been profoundly changed. In the following days, the story of living robots died down in the local news. The city's rumor mill spun other theories, elaborate pranks, illusions, stunts for an upcoming sci-fi festival. The robotics team quietly pressed on. They tinkered with Titan's code, ensuring it was untainted. The looming robotics tournament gave them focus, a reason to move forward. Soon, the fateful day of the competition arrived. Titan performed admirably. Showing none of the eerie spontaneity it once had, it navigated the obstacle course with precision, lifted objects with care, and followed voice commands with mechanical obedience. Nothing supernatural intruded. They didn't win first place. A more polished team from a private tech academy took top honors, with a sophisticated drone swarm. Still, Titan placed a respectable second, earning the cheers of a modest crowd. The team posed for photos with the trophy, smiling for the local paper. As Jade left the event, the sun setting behind her, she felt a tug of wistfulness. She thought of that ephemeral spark that had once animated Titan and the other creations that had haunted the city streets. For better or worse, they had extinguished that spark. Rena patted Jade's shoulder. "I know what you're thinking," she said softly. "Do you?" Jade asked, a small smile forming on her lips. "You're still stuck on the idea that we glimpsed something bigger than us." Jade shrugged. "Yeah, I can't help it. We basically opened a door between magic and technology. It's enormous." "True," Rena conceded. "But for now, let's just be high school students trying to build decent robots, okay?" Jade nodded, and they both laughed. Zev and Amir jogged over, brandishing the second-place medal. With a mischievous grin, Amir hung it around Jade's neck. "Teams heading out for celebratory milkshakes." Zev said, "You in?" "Absolutely," Jade replied, and together the four of them piled into Mr. Lawson's sedan. On the way, Jade looked out the window. The city lights rolled by, illuminating the sidewalk. She thought she saw a faint outline of a statue in a closed shop's display sculpture that resembled that clay golem's form. For a heartbeat, she wondered if it might come to life. But it remained perfectly still. She closed her eyes and leaned her head back against the seat. They had journeyed deep into a realm unknown. They had brushed with powers beyond typical comprehension, yet here they were, returning to the familiar routine of being teenagers, excited about electronics, code, and a well-deserved treat. An image floated through her mind, Titan's eyes flashing green, just before that final incantation had been installed. Maybe it was just malfunctioning power. Or maybe, for the briefest moment, it had remembered what it was to be alive, with that unearthly spark. They pulled up to the diner, the sweet smell of fries and milkshakes greeting them. Jade hopped out, letting the wonders and dangers of the past weeks fade into the background. She knew the story wasn't truly finished. Whatever they had unleashed wouldn't vanish so easily. But at least for the moment, they had peace. And maybe, just maybe, the next time technology and magic converged, they could shape something benevolent from it. Something that wouldn't roam the streets in half-formed confusion. With that thought tingling in her mind, Jade joined her friends inside the diner, determined to celebrate both their narrow escape and the possibilities that lay ahead.